and Jack the Ripper.
Yep.
So, I mean, this guy had a lot of parallels. And let me throw something back real quick. We haven't talked about a lot of serial killers that have used a gun because not many of them that are really well known in this golden age of serial killer did. You had, I guess because it was messy.
Because it was
loud
more personal, right? I mean, it was more personal to get up and use knives and strangle and stuff like that. And then because it was a personal relationship with with whomever they're killing. But you're right. Guns were not as, especially modern time, they weren't used as much. You can go back further and you can go to like Panzram who used guns. But yeah, you're right.
Blake, talk a little bit about some of the parallels that we were throwing out there. Do you have some others that you can kick towards us a little bit for Berkowitz here?
Well, yeah, I mean, we had arson at a young age. He's not the first serial killer to, explore arson. And then, like you said, he found out that he was adopted when he was like 6. I watched some stuff on him today. He did a live interview from prison, I guess a couple years ago. It's on YouTube in like 10 parts. It's like, I don't know, an hour or two long. And it's really good. But, it was that. There was the interest in the occult, which he shares with Ramirez, which we talked about Ramirez last week, and that guy that visited him on death row and his opinion of Berkowitz. We talked about that. But, there was that. There was the military thing, like you said. And then it was, for whatever reason, he shared it with the Zodiac. It was like most of the victims were intended to be female from, all appearances, I mean,
good point. And the guys were kind of just I don't know, they're not like, friendly fire or anything, but, it was just like, well, you're there, you get to die too.
Right, and they targeted big cities. H.H. Holmes hit Chicago, and there was rumors he had some unsubstantiated kills in New York, and then you had Albert Fish in New York, and then you had David Berkowitz in New York, and the Zodiac was in Vallejo, California, so they all targeted big cities, bustling, busy cities. Whitechapel, yeah.
I was going to agree with you. Actually, there was one other thing. We always talk about the Trinity that they look for in serial killers as kids. They look for the bedwetting, the animal torture, the arson. There was also the head injury they always look for, and he had multiple head injuries as a kid. Now, we don't know if that messed him up. I mean, obviously he got into the military just fine, like Johnny said. But that's another one of those things that they always look for with these guys. But who the hell knows if that has anything to do with what he became, right?
Right.
And I always say these serial killers have a weird, like, even if they're not like sex criminals, they have some sort of a weird, I don't know, sexual perversion about them. And this guy was like masturbating at the age of 9. That's a little odd to me. I find it to me. I don't know. There are some other strange things like him taking showers with his dad at 6 that I find pretty weird. I don't know. I think I might murder some people if I was having to do that. I'm just saying.
Wow.
I don't know. I'm just saying that's pretty messed up. But apparently he was teased a lot as a kid because of the adoption, which I think's fucked up. It's like this kid I don't know. Look, I know kids will make fun of anything, but it's like, why would you make fun of a kid because he's adopted? Like, he can help that. It reminded me of Halloween 4, Blake.
Oh yeah.
Jamie's an orphan.
Yeah, Jamie's mommy's a mummy. I'm like, you're an asshole.
Oh, that is so fucked up. Exactly. But, Johnny, talk about some of the things that, in his childhood that you've read about or anything like that. Because, we talked about some of the stuff here. But, again, I don't know that any one particular thing would create a serial killer. It's not the type of thing that you'd say, there it is.
I'm always sort of drawn to the little things that are kind of, he was into, stealing and pyromania and all that kind of stuff. But I like the fact that he was a good baseball player. Like he was really into baseball. I think
strong
that's
arm
kind of cool,
too.
Right? I mean, that means he had good hand-eye coordination. He could aim well. That came in handy later, I guess. Right? I mean, it's those things I think that connect them to society, and that's what kind of is an interesting thing. There's serial killers that that were good ballroom dancers, that were good deacons, and like they had connections to society in an acceptable way. His was baseball. He was actually he was a good baseball player. I thought that was kind of cool.
Well, speaking of little things like that, like he had, I don't know how much people have talked about this in the past, but he actually saw 2 different people die as a kid. I mean, like saw it happen. He saw, a boy die from falling from the side of a bus when he was a kid. And then around that same time period, between 10 and 14, he actually, there was something else too. I'm trying to think of what it was. He saw. I think
his mother died from breast cancer. I think he was witness to some of the effects of that.
Yeah, actually, he saw a girl and her mother die instantly after being hit by a car, and this is around age 10 also. So this is the formative years where you're really, kind of forming everything, and that's what he sees. So I don't know. And by the way, if you watch A&E Biography, they talk about how he was tormented by horror movies he would watch, and I just think that's such bullshit. They always try to blame stuff like that. He claimed monsters were bothering him, but kids always say shit like that.
Well, no, he said that he had a morbid fascination with the 1968 film Rosemary's Baby, and that's sort of what led to his interest into dabbling in the occult.
In the occult, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, which is a big mistake. I mean, if you listen to him talk now, I listened to him for about an hour today.
The Son of Hope.
Yeah, he really, I'm going to put it to you this way and then I'll leave it alone. I grew up a Christian, was raised Christian and, had Christian, church and a very religious upbringing as far as, believing in something. He legitimately sounds like to me that he honestly believes that it's not like something he's trying to use to get sympathy for people, because he said, I grew up, I had head injuries, I had a really rough upbringing. That's no excuse for what I did, but I think that can help contribute to my already poor mental development. I mean, he's very cognizant of what he is, and I mean, he was diagnosed later in life with ADD and hyperactivity disorder, which back then, if you had that, they just thought you was just an unruly child. They didn't think anything of it like they do now. Like, now there's something in the DSM manual for everything. I mean, tree hugging's probably in there, for Christ's sake. There's something for everything. And like you said, he had some head injuries. He was hit by a car and walked away from it when he was real young, about 9 or 10. And I think a combination of the head injuries and then the dabbling in the occult, because he really honestly believes that he tapped into something he shouldn't have, which speaks to a lot of the horror movie stuff. When I went and saw Ouija, I immediately thought of him. It's like, it's kind of cool to think about, in a morbid way, of course, that dabbling into something might have accidentally opened a door you didn't mean to step through, and then it completely wreaks havoc on your life. But he seems very thoughtful about what he did. I mean, he's written books since he's been in prison. The website I watch the videos on is his, and he makes no money off of it, but he uploads his diary journals and stuff there. He's got internet access, which speaks to taxpayers and what we're really paying for here, I'm surprised he doesn't have a Facebook. But, it's weird, man. It's weird, the whole occult thing, and then he was the opposite of most serial killers. I mean, most of them tried to infiltrate society being well-to-do, like H.H. Holmes, like, Albert Fish at times, and some of the others. But he started out, kind of middle of the road, sort of, the adopted son of, hardware store owners that were like just medium income people, just regular, average American, Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were middle America. Yep.
Let's not forget the Trinity that we had talked about earlier about the animals. I didn't mention this yet, but at the age of 13 or so, he killed his mom's parakeet because apparently he wasn't getting enough attention and the parakeet was. So I don't know. That just goes into the whole thing about you start seeing these warning signs and something's probably up with them,
It's true. I mean, there are distinct warning signs to pretty much every serial killer, and it's hindsight's 20/20. I mean, Dahmer or Kemper, he killed cats and dogs in the neighborhood, and people just didn't really think that much of it for some weird reason. And for Berkowitz, it was the same thing. Like, you'd think that might be an indicator, you want to get him looked at a little bit. But back then they didn't do that, right? So
apparently they didn't know he killed the parakeet either. He was sneaky about it, so I'm not sure. But, Johnny, how much do you think that, remember when he was 14, his adoptive mother, Pearl, she died from breast cancer. But before she, before he found out she was dying, and she quickly died, he kind of told her he hated her. And, I think she died not knowing, whether he loved her or not. I mean, that's got to plague somebody's mind too, right?
It's got to be disturbing at the least. I mean, I know that one of his letters, even though he misspelled it, but he said that he was disturbed by the fact that they called him a woman hater, right? Mm-hmm. And they try to draw back that he hated women, and he was very disturbed by that. He was just saying, no, he was disturbed. He was a monster. He would call himself a monster, right? Beelzebub. But I really don't think that he had the hatred for women as people suspect he did. Mm-hmm. And you can link back hatred to women with a number of serial killers like Bundy, and Bundy was a perfect example where he hated his mother, he hated his girlfriend, and they were all kind of similar. Kemper had a similar type of thing, but I don't think that was the case with Berkowitz. I mean, I think that I don't think that was what drew him. I don't think that's what drew him to killing women. I mean, he talked about that in an interview that I saw. He did an interview a while ago, a long time ago, with what's his face? He was on CNN. I can't remember his name.
Not Larry King, was it?
Yeah, Larry King. Yeah, Larry King. He did an interview with Larry King in like '99 or around 2000 or so, and he talked about that. And he was very, he was talking about how he thought he didn't hate women, or that he spoke kind of I don't know, positively toward his parents, So I don't know. Mm-hmm. Who knows really what's in their mind?
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, I guess it's the unfinished business aspect of it. And, I don't know what to think beyond that. So, all right. So around that time, okay, so when he's 14 or so, that's when Pearl dies. It screws with him a little bit. And in school, he starts missing a lot of school. Now, he sucked. He was truant before that. But in school, even though he ended up with a 3.3 GPA before it was all said and done, dude was missing a lot of school. It's like, his dad married whenever he was 17, so maybe that helped him a little bit, but even though he was unhappy about the marriage, I don't know. I mean, this is another one of those situations, like, divorce can toy with some. It's not divorce, it's widowing, but you know what I mean.
He joined the Army right after his dad got married, like within a year, right?
Yeah,
I think that he, so I don't know if one could draw a conclusion that he was just trying to escape that, or as soon as he turned 18, at the time of Vietnam War, he joined the Army, which is kind of interesting, right? There was not too many people joining the Army during that time, but he did, and maybe that was to escape that particular situation. Who knows?
Yeah, he wanted to die in Vietnam. Blake, have you ever heard about that? I mean, I know they talked about it in biography. Like, he fantasized about stuff like that, like he dying a hero type thing. Blake, are you still there, or is your headset fucking with you?
I'm still here. Sorry, I was trying my other headset. Apparently it's for shit, too, so I want to just go back to the standard communication here without the headset. But, yeah, I've heard that, and I think he sort of, his paranoid delusions sort of led him to feel the same way when he was a younger teenager pre-Army, because he used to all the time fantasize then about jumping in front of subway cars and trains and all that. And I think the dying a hero, this is going to sound cheesy, but it's coming from me, and it's a film reference. You have to let You have to let me do it. It's almost like paraphrasing Eric